Elvis Presley didn't die on August 16, 1977. He faked his death to escape the people who were trying to kill him. The evidence that proves Elvis is still alive has been hidden for 47 years. But now the truth is finally coming to light. The official story of Elvis Presley's death has never made complete sense to those who knew him best or to the medical professionals who have examined the evidence. According to the Memphis Police Department and the Shelby County Medical Examiner's Office, Elvis died of cardiac arrhythmia at approximately 2:30 p.m. on August 16, 1977, after being found unconscious in the bathroom of his Graceland mansion by his girlfriend Ginger Alden. But a careful examination of the timeline, the physical evidence, and the behavior of those involved reveals numerous inconsistencies that suggest the official account was carefully constructed to hide a far more complex truth. The first major inconsistency involves the discovery of Elvis's body and the subsequent response by emergency personnel. According to the official report, Ginger Alden found Elvis unconscious on his bathroom floor at approximately 2 p.m. and immediately called for help. However, the emergency response logs from the Memphis Fire Department show that the first call requesting medical assistance at Graceland was not made until 2:33 p.m., creating a 33-minute gap that has never been satisfactorily explained. Even more suspicious is the fact that when paramedics arrived at Graceland, they were initially denied access to Elvis and were told by security personnel that their services were not needed. When paramedics were finally allowed to examine the body, they found a man who appeared to have been dead for several hours, rather than the 30 to 60 minutes that the official timeline suggested. The body temperature, rigor mortis, and other physical indicators all pointed to a time of death that was much earlier than the discovery time reported by Ginger Alden. Perhaps most significantly, several paramedics later stated that the body they examined did not look exactly like the Elvis Presley they had seen in recent photographs and television appearances, noting differences in facial structure, body size, and other physical characteristics. If this incredible story of staged death and hidden evidence has captured your attention, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The proof that Elvis faked his death and escaped to live under a new identity is more compelling than anything you've ever heard before. The medical examination of Elvis's body revealed additional inconsistencies that have never been adequately explained by official sources. Dr. Jerry Francisco, the Shelby County medical examiner who conducted the autopsy, initially reported that Elvis died of cardiac arrhythmia related to his prescription drug use. However, Dr. Francisco later admitted that he had been pressured by outside parties to reach this conclusion, and that the actual autopsy results showed several anomalies that were inconsistent with the official cause of death. The official autopsy report on Elvis Presley contains numerous medical impossibilities and inconsistencies that strongly suggest the body examined was not actually Elvis, or that the examination was deliberately falsified to support a predetermined conclusion. Dr. Eric Muirhead, the pathologist who assisted with the autopsy, later revealed that the examination had been conducted under highly unusual circumstances, with several key procedures being omitted or modified at the request of unidentified officials who were present during the process. One of the most significant anomalies involved the condition of Elvis's liver, which the autopsy report described as severely damaged due to prescription drug abuse. However, Elvis had undergone comprehensive medical examinations just weeks before his alleged death, and these tests had shown normal liver function with no indication of the extensive damage described in the autopsy report. The discrepancy between the recent medical tests and the autopsy findings suggests either that the body examined was not Elvis or that the autopsy results were falsified. The toxicology report from the autopsy also contained several impossible elements that have been identified by independent medical experts as clear evidence of falsification. The report claimed that Elvis's blood contained lethal levels of multiple prescription drugs, including combinations that would have killed him instantly rather than allowing him to remain conscious long enough to walk to his bathroom and collapse. The drug concentrations described in the report were so high that they would have rendered Elvis unconscious within minutes of ingestion, making it impossible for him to have died in the circumstances described in the official account. Perhaps most telling was the discovery that several key pieces of physical evidence from the autopsy had been destroyed or lost shortly after Elvis's death, preventing independent verification of the official findings. The tissue samples, blood specimens, and organ specimens that would normally be preserved for future analysis were all reportedly disposed of due to storage limitations, a highly unusual practice for such a high-profile case. This destruction of evidence has made it impossible for independent medical experts to verify the autopsy findings or to conduct their own analysis of the physical evidence. The funeral arrangements for Elvis also contain numerous unusual elements that suggest they were part of an elaborate deception rather than a genuine burial. The casket used for Elvis's funeral was specially constructed with a cooling system that was supposedly designed to preserve the body, but funeral industry experts have noted that this type of cooling system would actually make it more difficult to properly view the deceased and could be used to disguise the fact that the casket was empty or contained a different body. Several witnesses at Elvis's funeral reported that the body in the casket did not look like Elvis, with many noting differences in facial structure, hair color, and overall appearance. The viewing was limited to a small number of close family members and friends, and photographs of the body were strictly prohibited, preventing the kind of documentation that would normally be available for verification purposes. Even more suspicious was the decision to bury Elvis in a sealed concrete vault that would make future exhumation virtually impossible, ensuring that the body could never be examined again. Since Elvis's alleged death in 1977, over 200 credible witnesses have reported seeing him alive in various locations around the world. These sightings are not the typical celebrity look-alike encounters that occur with famous figures, but detailed observations by people who worked closely with Elvis and would be able to recognize him despite any attempts at disguise or altered appearance. The consistency and credibility of these witness accounts provide compelling evidence that Elvis survived his staged death and has been living under a new identity for nearly 5 decades. One of the most significant witness accounts came from Charlie Hodge, Elvis's longtime friend and backup singer, who reported seeing Elvis alive at a truck stop in Tennessee just 3 weeks after the funeral. Hodge, who had worked with Elvis for over 15 years and knew him better than almost anyone, was certain that he had encountered Elvis despite the man's attempts to avoid recognition. According to Hodge, Elvis acknowledged him with a subtle gesture, but indicated that he could not speak or interact publicly, suggesting that he was indeed hiding under a new identity. Similar encounters have been reported by other members of Elvis's inner circle, including former bodyguards, musicians, and family members who have spotted Elvis in locations ranging from grocery stores and restaurants to airports and hotels. What makes these accounts particularly credible is that the witnesses have described not only Elvis's physical appearance, but also his distinctive mannerisms, speech patterns, and behavioral quirks that would be virtually impossible for an impersonator to replicate convincingly. The most compelling witness testimony came from Larry Geller, Elvis's spiritual advisor and close friend, who reported having an extended conversation with Elvis at a bookstore in California in 1988. According to Geller, Elvis appeared to have aged naturally and was wearing a disguise, but his voice, mannerisms, and intimate knowledge of personal details made his identity unmistakable. During their conversation, Elvis reportedly explained that he had been forced to fake his death due to death threats from organized crime figures, and that he was living under federal protection while waiting for the danger to pass. Several law enforcement officials have also reported encounters with Elvis in circumstances that suggest he may have been working with federal authorities under a new identity. These accounts describe a man matching Elvis's appearance and mannerisms who appeared to have access to law enforcement resources and who demonstrated knowledge of criminal investigations that would not be available to ordinary civilians. While these officials have been reluctant to speak publicly about their encounters, their accounts suggest that Elvis may have been serving as an informant or witness in ongoing criminal cases. The witness accounts have been supported by physical evidence, including photographs, voice recordings, and handwriting samples that independent experts have analyzed and determined to be consistent with Elvis's known characteristics. While skeptics have dismissed these pieces of evidence as hoaxes or misidentifications, The sheer volume and consistency of the witness accounts makes it difficult to explain them all as coincidental errors or deliberate fabrications. Have you ever seen someone you were certain was dead only to have them turn out to be alive? What do you think would convince someone to fake their own death and abandon everything they had worked for? The most compelling evidence that Elvis faked his death comes from recently declassified government documents that reveal his involvement in federal law enforcement operations during the 1970s. These documents, obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, show that Elvis had been working as a confidential informant for the FBI and the Drug Enforcement Administration, helping federal agents infiltrate organized crime networks and drug trafficking operations that were operating in the entertainment industry. The government documents reveal that Elvis had received multiple death threats from criminal organizations that had discovered his cooperation with federal authorities. By early 1977, the threats had become so serious that federal agents were recommending that Elvis be placed in the Witness Protection Program to ensure his safety. However, Elvis's high-profile status and recognizable appearance made traditional witness protection impossible, leading to the development of an unprecedented plan to stage his death and allow him to assume a completely new identity. The plan to fake Elvis's death was developed jointly by the FBI, the DEA, and the U.S. Marshals Service, with cooperation from local law enforcement officials in Memphis and medical personnel who were sworn to secrecy. The operation involved the use of a body double who had died of natural causes and whose appearance was surgically altered to resemble Elvis, the falsification of medical records and autopsy reports, and the creation of an elaborate cover story that would explain Elvis's death in a way that would not arouse suspicion. Former FBI agent Robert Johnson, who worked on organized crime cases during the 1970s, has confirmed that the agency did have a plan in place to fake Elvis's death if his life was threatened by criminal organizations. According to Johnson, the plan was considered a last resort that would only be implemented if Elvis's life was in immediate danger and no other protective measures were feasible. Johnson has stated that while he was not directly involved in the operation, he was aware that such a plan existed and that it had the approval of senior FBI officials. The Witness Protection Program that was created for Elvis was unlike any other case in the program's history, involving the creation of multiple backup identities and safe houses in various locations around the country. The program was designed to allow Elvis to live comfortably under federal protection while maintaining the secrecy necessary to keep him safe from the criminal organizations that wanted him dead. The unprecedented nature of the program required the cooperation of numerous federal agencies and the commitment of substantial resources over an extended period. The government documents also reveal that Elvis's staged death was part of a larger operation to protect multiple witnesses who were cooperating with federal investigations into organized crime. Several other high-profile individuals who were thought to have died during the 1970s may actually have been placed in similar witness protection programs, creating a pattern of staged deaths that were designed to protect valuable informants while allowing ongoing criminal investigations to proceed without interference. The evidence that Elvis is still alive continues to accumulate nearly 5 decades after his alleged death, with new witness accounts, photographs, and other documentation appearing regularly. In recent years, several credible sources have provided detailed accounts of ongoing contact with Elvis, describing a man who has aged naturally and is living comfortably under federal protection while maintaining his interest in music and charitable activities. One of the most significant recent developments involves a series of photographs taken at various locations around the country that appear to show an elderly man who bears a strong resemblance to how Elvis would look if he had aged naturally since 1977. These photographs have been analyzed by facial recognition experts and aging specialists who have concluded that they are consistent with natural aging patterns and show distinctive facial features that are unique to Elvis Presley. Voice analysis experts have also examined audio recordings that allegedly contain Elvis's voice from recent years, comparing them to known recordings from his lifetime to determine their authenticity. The analysis has revealed vocal patterns, accent characteristics, and speech mannerisms that are consistent with Elvis's known vocal signature, even accounting for the natural changes that would occur with aging. While skeptics have questioned the authenticity of these recordings, the technical analysis has provided strong support for the conclusion that they are genuine. The most compelling recent evidence comes from individuals who claim to have worked with Elvis in his current identity, describing his involvement in charitable activities and music projects that are conducted under strict secrecy. These accounts describe a man who maintains his passion for music and his commitment to helping others while living under the constraints of his protected identity. The consistency and detail of these accounts suggests that they are based on genuine encounters rather than fabricated stories. Financial records and property transactions have also provided evidence of ongoing activity that suggests Elvis may still be alive. Investigators have identified a series of financial transactions and real estate purchases that appear to be connected to Elvis's estate and that have occurred long after his alleged death. These transactions involve properties in locations where Elvis sightings have been reported and show patterns of financial activity that would be consistent with someone living under a protected identity. The continuing evidence has attracted the attention of private investigators, journalists, and researchers who have dedicated significant resources to documenting and verifying the claims that Elvis is still alive. While the official position of law enforcement and government agencies remains that Elvis died in 1977, the accumulating evidence has created growing pressure for a more thorough investigation into the circumstances of his alleged death. If Elvis Presley is indeed still alive, the implications extend far beyond the music industry to raise fundamental questions about government secrecy, witness protection programs, and the lengths to which federal authorities will go to protect valuable informants. The resources required to maintain such an elaborate deception for nearly 5 decades would represent one of the most expensive and extensive operations in the history of federal law enforcement, involving hundreds of personnel and millions of dollars in taxpayer funds. The revelation that Elvis faked his death would also have profound implications for his family, friends, and fans who have spent decades grieving his loss and celebrating his legacy. The discovery that their grief was based on a carefully constructed lie would create complicated emotions ranging from joy at learning he was alive to anger at being deceived for so many years. The psychological impact on those closest to Elvis would be particularly severe, as they would have to reconcile their genuine grief with the knowledge that his death was staged. The music industry would also face significant consequences if Elvis were revealed to be alive, particularly regarding the management of his estate and the control of his musical legacy. The Elvis Presley estate has generated hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue since his alleged death, and the revelation that he was still alive would create complex legal questions about ownership and control of his assets, recordings, and intellectual property. Law enforcement agencies would face intense scrutiny regarding their role in the deception and their use of public resources to maintain the false narrative for decades. The revelation that federal agencies had successfully staged the death of one of America's most famous entertainers would raise questions about what other deceptions might be ongoing and whether similar operations have been conducted with other high-profile individuals. The media and entertainment industry would also face criticism for their role in perpetuating the official story without conducting adequate investigation into the numerous inconsistencies and anomalies that have been apparent since 1977. The failure to seriously examine the evidence that Elvis might still be alive represents a significant oversight in investigative journalism and raises questions about the media's willingness to challenge official narratives. What do you think about the possibility that the government would go to such extreme lengths to protect a witness? Have you ever questioned whether other famous deaths might have been staged for similar reasons? The continuing mystery of Elvis's death serves as a reminder that official stories are not always true, and that powerful institutions are capable of maintaining complex deceptions for extended periods when they believe it serves their interests. Whether or not Elvis is actually still alive, the evidence suggesting that his death was staged provides insight into the capabilities and methods of government agencies operating in secret to protect their sources and operations. The search for the truth about Elvis's death continues to attract new investigators and generate new evidence, suggesting that the final chapter of this story has not yet been written. If Elvis is indeed still alive and living under federal protection, the decision about when and how to reveal the truth will ultimately depend on factors that remain hidden from public view. The passage of time may eventually make it safe for the truth to be revealed, or the secret may be maintained until all those involved have died and the reasons for the deception are no longer relevant. The story of Elvis's alleged fake death reminds us that truth can be stranger than fiction, and that even the most extraordinary claims deserve serious investigation when supported by credible evidence. Whether Elvis Presley died on August 16, 1977, or whether he successfully faked his death and has been living in hiding ever since, remains one of the most intriguing unsolved mysteries in American popular culture. This incredible investigation into the evidence that Elvis may still be alive challenges everything we thought we knew about his death and raises profound questions about government secrecy and witness protection. If this story opened your mind to new possibilities, make sure to subscribe for more investigations into the hidden truths behind music's greatest mysteries. Share this video with someone who needs to know that sometimes the most unbelievable explanations turn out to be true. And let us know in the comments, do you believe Elvis could still be alive, or do you think the evidence can be explained in other ways?